want to thank the people here who are joining us. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate your time and your assistance during this time. You know, with the Muslim community being the busiest time of the year for us, and also a very different time for everyone. You know, under quarantine. And we really appreciate you all being here with us and for us, and helping us, you know, get through all of this together. Um, so with that, I will hand it off to Neda. Just a couple of actually housekeeping just quickly before. For all of the people who are watching, who are streaming, you can ask questions in the Q&A box, or you can ask questions in the chat box. Either or work. The Q&A box is just easier because we can keep track of which ones have been answered. That way we don't miss anyone's questions who may have it. And if anyone is on the stream, when you type into the chat, it automatically gets sent into our chat as well. So we'll be able to see it there as well. So please feel free to ask questions there at any time. And with that, I will hand it off to Neda.
Perfect. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and Ramadan Kareem. Thank you all for being able to join the call and the workshop today. A lot of this was planned mid last week, and we were fortunate enough to get some Facebook folks to join late on Friday, so thank you all. Just to give some context and to do a couple of introductions first, my name is Nada Fateh. I'm a software engineer at Facebook, and I've been supporting some of the teams these last few weeks with the situation with COVID-19. Facebook in particular has seen a lot of faith communities using Facebook to reach their congregations, to have events, to have prayers. And we've seen that especially with the Muslim community in the last week with Ramadan starting. So trying to better figure out how we can, what features would be most useful to the Muslim community, how we can make fundraising more streamlined. And this is a really good opportunity for us to kind of communicate more of our needs with Facebook. And I'm really excited for us to start this conversation. So with that, if Avani, you can start with a little bit of an introduction with what you've been doing and with what your team has been doing, and then Colin, and then hopefully Taro will hop on the call in a little bit.
Hi, assalamu alaikum everybody. Ramadan Mubarak. So happy to be here today. My name is Avni Parekh, and I have been assisting with Facebook's faith outreach efforts, particularly to the Muslim community. And one of the things I wanted to be here to highlight today is a set of best practices and tools and information called our Faith Hub, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more later. But my day-to-day work is working with communities and community partnerships team here at Facebook to help foster really healthy and impactful communities across the Facebook family of apps.
I'll go ahead. Hi, everyone. My name's Colin. I work in product marketing on the live team. My role is really to make sure that the engineers who are building our live platform understand and build for the needs of our stakeholders like yourselves who are using these tools to connect with your communities in a time like this. So I'm really looking forward to better understanding your questions and your pain points, and also sharing what I can about the live product in order to facilitate things for you over the coming weeks. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'll go next. My name is Thari Riley, and I'm a product manager for the fundraising products at Facebook. And I'm really excited to be here to talk to all of you about your needs and specific to Islamic giving. And we hope that we can give you an introduction or primer to our charitable giving products and what options are available to you to leverage on Facebook.
Thank you all for those introductions. Malik, we wanted to turn it over to you and to maybe get an introduction from you and the Shura Council. And then if there are any community leaders that can maybe speak about what they've been doing these last few weeks in terms of fundraising, in terms of live.
Yeah, thank you all for being here again. So, just a quick introduction. My name is Malik Mindanhom. I'm the executive director of the Shura Council of Southern California. We're the umbrella organization of mosques and Muslim charities here in Southern California. We have over 70 members from San Diego all the way to Coachella and Los Angeles and everything in between. Um, and we really try and be here as a resource for our members and for our community and for our organizations, which was one of the reasons why we really wanted to put this together. A lot of our organizations really depend on this month of Ramadan because we're encouraged to be more charitable during this month. It's the month where the crowds at mosques are at their peak, and it's where a lot of our organizations get their funding for the rest of the year. A lot of it really comes down to this month of Ramadan, as well as some of their visibility, being able to get in front of the community, being able to really let everyone know, see, and understand what it is that they do. So Ramadan is it's really a big month for not only the individual but also for the organizations as well. And with the stay-at-home orders and social distancing and all of these different things, a lot of organizations are not really able to use the general means that they usually do to get in front of people, to not only garner their financial support, but also to let people really hear about the work that they're doing and their mission. So it's really been a learning process for everyone, and as other faith communities and everything, we're taking it as it comes. We're really trying to grow and to move forward, and I know that a lot of the organizations and the mosques that are on here now, really kind of are in the same boat where they had plans for Ramadan, like visiting different centers and whatnot, and all of that had to take a complete turn, and in areas that they're really not used to, chief of which actually are online programs. Um, and really, Facebook has played a big key role in how we are communicating with our community. So we thought it would be best and most beneficial for all of us if we were able to connect directly with you and hear from you. What are the things that we can do? How can we take advantage of the tools that are out there? Even becoming aware of what those tools are, so that we can properly use them. Uh, so yeah, that's my little spiel. I know our chairman is on.
Yeah, I was going to say if we can maybe open it up to hearing a little bit more about the approaches that some other masajids or community centers have been taking,
Yes.
what they're thinking about doing these next few weeks with Ramadan, what
Yes.
they've done already.
So if anyone has any they would like to, oh, we already have a question. All right. Oh, it's a question though.
You can start with questions too.
Okay, cool. The first question is how to increase engagement and donation from users, including targeting interests slash behaviors, etc. How to better our chances of donations being matched during Facebook's matching campaign at the end of the year.
So I can try to speak to that. So in terms of targeting and increasing engagement and donations, one thing you can use is leveraging our ads product. So there's some level of targeting built in to our product. So if you're posting on your page, then or you start a fundraiser, then there are notifications that will go out that are built into the product to followers of your page, and it further engages them. So posting on your page will definitely help, and giving updates, and the more you sort of like add content to your fundraiser or to your page, then that will draw people in. And then the second option is to use our ads product. So you can, if you have a list of past donors or past people who have supported you from your own website, then you can use that to build ad campaigns on Facebook. And then in terms of donations being matched during the Facebook matching campaign at the end of the year, I think this might be in reference to Giving Tuesday. And we don't match for across all of Facebook, but we typically match for specific partner organizations. And that's usually what we're going for on Giving Tuesday is broad reach. And so we don't present a matching campaign for very, very specific causes. And I can share more on that as a follow-up if people are interested to know on how to participate in Giving Tuesday.
So there's actually a follow-up question to that. You mentioned, sorry, they're typing more. It says you mentioned you partner with specific organizations. Given that Giving Tuesday is tomorrow, are you still accepting applications?
Okay, yeah. So there are 2 Giving Tuesday events this year. So there's one tomorrow called Giving Tuesday Now. We actually aren't participating very broadly in Giving Tuesday Now. So I think where we're going to focus our efforts are on the typical Giving Tuesday, which is right after Thanksgiving. And so we don't necessarily take applications for participation, but we would be able to share like information on best practices and how to make the use of that day.
Okay, awesome. There were also a couple other in the chat on what they've been doing to raise funds through Facebook. There are 2 of them. One of them saying using our board members to start small micro fundraisers through Facebook. The other one says going live as often as possible to engage directly with our constituents.
Yeah, those are both really great options. And I think the great thing about our fundraisers is that they really have features built in to make use of Facebook's reach. And so when you start a fundraiser, it notifies people in your network to help raise funds. And again, the best thing you can do for engagement on a fundraiser is to continue to post on the fundraiser, and that brings people in. And then on the live, of course, there's the donate button that you can turn on when you have when you're going live.
Related to the personal fundraisers that we kind of mentioned, Taro, maybe you can also expand on. I've heard that you can also do page fundraisers. So those are only eligible for certain organizations or certain pages, whereas anyone can create a personal fundraiser and then dedicate that to an organization. So can you maybe explain the difference between?
Yeah, sure. So there is an application process to be eligible to receive payments directly through Facebook. And we call that like our onboarding application. And you can find a link to this in the Help Center. Avni can definitely help direct you to that. And if you're onboarded, what that means is that you're a 501c3, but you've also gone through Facebook's verification process. What we ask for are specific documents to help validate that you'll be able to receive payments from us. And we do like integrity checks and that kind of thing to make sure that we're not enabling any bad characters to fundraise on Facebook. So that is one approach. And then once you have onboarded as a 501c3, then you're able to access, you'll be able to add a donate button to your Facebook page, and you'll show up in the nonprofit selector. So there is one other way to do this, and that is through a what we call a DAF, and you're able to be onboarded through something called something like Network for Good. And they're basically a third party that sits in between Facebook and 501c3. So you still have to have 501c3 status, but you'll get paid through this third party as opposed directly through Facebook. So Facebook will pay the third party and then they'll distribute funds to you. The disadvantage there is that it takes a little bit longer to get paid and you don't have access to the same features on your page, like page fundraisers or the donate button. And so if you're a verified onboarded 501c3 to Facebook, then that means we trust you to start a fundraiser using your page as opposed to that of an individual name. And the other thing is that there are no fees. So we won't take any fees out of the funds that you've raised. If you're doing a personal fundraiser, that means that a single individual, not an organization, is starting a fundraiser for a specific purpose. All personal fundraisers go through an approval process. So we look to see what the use case is for the fundraiser and who's starting it, and then we approve it. If your fundraiser is approved and you raise funds successfully, then the individual person who started that fundraiser takes on the tax liability as opposed to the organization that they're fundraising for. So that is the difference there. So I think that hopefully that helps explain it.
Yeah. So related to the onboarding process, I'm sure there are other questions too, but I think I've heard this one a couple of times. If the mosque or the community center is not onboarded yet, what can they do? Especially given the time crunch that we're kind of on now with Ramadan and with fundraising happening almost every night here.
Yeah, if there's interest in getting onboarded, we can share the application process, a link to the application process, and then as a follow-up from this meeting, and then we can take a look. We can try to keep an eye on the applications to see where we can expedite and move them through given the time crunch. Can't make any promises there because I'm not part of the approval chain and there's a step-by-step process, but we can definitely at least keep an eye on the applications and make sure that we're giving updates. So you'll get an email back from our payments team and our approval team, and they'll give you steps. I think the most important thing you can do to expedite is make sure you have all your documents and you submit a complete application from the start. That'll help things go really quickly.
Awesome. We do have a few questions. I don't know if you want to maybe move along further and then take questions, or would you prefer to just answer questions as they come in?
I can answer questions as they come in. I do have to leave the meeting a little bit early, so maybe we can continue to talk about charitable giving and then we can switch over to live. So I have to drop off at 2 o'clock.
Okay. So then maybe if you can go with your portion and then we can start answering some of the questions.
Sure. So in general, I wanted to share what kind of options you have for fundraising on Facebook. So we already talked about creating a fundraiser, and the fundraiser itself will have a goal and it has an end date. So when you post a fundraiser, create a fundraiser and post it, it'll show the amount that you're trying to raise, and it'll show it has like kind of an expiration date, so it ends. There is also two other options. So you can add a donate button to a post. So if you create a post on your organization's page, then you can also add a donate button to that. And that doesn't have a goal. It's more open-ended. So that might be a better option depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And then the third is, of course, the donate button on the live stream. And so if you are having a group meeting or you're having a fundraiser, a service that you're streaming online, then that's a good option there. And I'm sort of curious to hear from the group which of these options is most relevant to your use case, and like, are these the tools that you need, or are they not necessarily meeting your needs and you're looking for other options? For example, we've heard from other groups that the donate button during a live stream is visible during the entire stream. And since the service itself is not all about donating or giving, it's a little bit inappropriate to have it there the entire time. And what they prefer is that there's a time during the service in which they ask about giving and donating, and they only want the button to show up during that time. So that's a modification that we're currently working on, and that's the type of feedback that I'm interested to hear. So having a fundraiser with a goal, does that fit into the context in which you talk about giving as part of your faith, or is it inappropriate to talk about goal? Is it inappropriate to talk about the amount that was raised, or if any of this is uncomfortable or doesn't fit into the way that giving is part of the Islamic faith, then I'd love to hear that feedback, and then I can take it back to our team.
So there are two comments on that. Number one is, would it be possible to be able to turn on and off the donate on the screen? That would be helpful. So it would only appear when we need it to, and not when we are during the religious part. So I guess, while they're giving like a religious reminder, not to have like the donate kind of just in big.
Yeah.
And when they're making the pitch, to be able to like hit a button and say, here it is.
Yeah. So the team is working on that, and I don't have timing, but I can tell you that we have received that feedback more broadly, and we're making that adjustment. So they'll be able to turn it on when they're ready to talk about giving.
The second comment on that is, in our tradition, it's always better to give anonymously, so that it's something between you and God. So facilitating that is good. However, it can also be used as a means to encourage others to give. So perhaps showing the amount, but not who gave the amount.
Okay. Got it.
Are there any other comments, particularly on this, on how the fundraising applications and methods can be improved? Please let us know. There's one more. We like the Facebook fundraisers, but lack of donor information makes us hesitate to use it all of the time.
Got it.
There was another comment right before, a little bit before. It was more of a question, actually, is that we have a CRM that we use. Can CRMs integrate with Facebook?
Got it. So we don't, we do share reports on what information on basically the donation amount and who donated and all of that. And that is something that is sent to you. I think it's a weekly report that you will receive, and that information can be ingested. I don't know if it doesn't integrate directly with a CRM. But people have creative ways of like basically using that information to, look at trends and that kind of thing. So there is reporting that you receive, and then the donor themselves will also receive a receipt directly from Facebook for tax purposes and all of that. So there's some level of reporting. We can definitely share more information on that if people are interested. The payouts coming from Facebook they take about 2 to 3 weeks. If you are getting paid through a DAF, then that means that your payouts take longer, so 4 to 6 weeks. So you can also check your eligibility through our help center to know which one. Most 501c3s in the US are automatically part of a DAF. And so you might be eligible and might be receiving funds through the DAF, but not actually onboarded and verified through Facebook. So definitely you can enhance your experience by onboarding directly with Facebook.
There were a couple of other comments. One, to stop the name from being displayed publicly, but have the name for accounting purposes.
Yeah, so that actually does happen. The donor can always choose to set the donation to private. That's an existing feature, and if the donation is set to private, the organization itself will still know who made the donation, and we sort of outline that to the donor themselves.
And then the next one was email addresses are lacking.
Yeah, we don't share email addresses in the reports at this time. We don't have any plans to share the email addresses, but we are thinking about ways in which you can reach out through Facebook to your supporters and be able to thank them and that kind of thing. Right now, what we encourage is that you post to your page and thank people that way. But this is feedback that we've heard before, and we're considering it while also trying to protect the privacy of the users on Facebook.
Yeah, and then just another, I guess, kind of related question. How can we better connect with the individuals that donate on our fundraiser other than through their Facebook profile? Some of them may not follow us, so it's difficult.
Okay. So sorry, the feedback was that
How to be able to connect with individuals who donate on, like, for instance, they have a donation, a fundraiser up, and someone donates, but how can they easily connect with that person?
Yeah. So I think that one thing that you can do is on the fundraiser page itself, you can thank them. So if you click through a fundraiser, then the fundraiser itself has a page. So if they're not connected directly to your organization, like for example, you have a board member who started a fundraiser, you should be able to access that fundraiser and then thank people on that page. And this is great feedback, and I'll definitely take this back to the team as we're thinking about how to improve these products. We'll also think about these kind of use cases where you're trying to reach out to people who aren't necessarily already part of your organization.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, I do have to run, but this is great.
Thank you so much.
Great conversation. If there's some interest in doing a deep dive on fundraising, then we can definitely follow up with another session, and I can connect with Avni on how to facilitate that and get everybody the information they need.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it as well. Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have a great day. Bye. So there were a couple of other questions. I don't know if you want to jump into those questions or if you'd like to maybe start a discussion. I leave that to you, Neda.
Yeah, so I thought maybe we could transition to talking a little bit more about live since Colin is here. If the questions are related to fundraising, we can talk about those first though, before we do that transition.
Yes, a couple of them are related to fundraising.
Okay, I can try to answer them as best as I can. Colin may have more insight too. And then hopefully we can get a couple of follow-ups from Taro.
Okay, awesome. So one of them is, when does an organization receive the money from a fundraiser? How long does it take?
I believe that's 2 to 3 weeks. So it was kind of what Taro was just mentioning.
Okay, the second one, we have applied to be onboarded 2 weeks ago and we have not heard back. How long does the process usually take?
Yeah, so Avani may be able to talk a little bit more about the idea of expediting the process to get some of these organizations kind of approved sooner rather than later. I'm not sure if they started doing that for some faith communities in the last couple of weeks with Easter and with the holidays. This is something that I've heard. I don't know if they have been able to expedite any of these processes.
Yeah, and I think Daru mentioned it. So if any of you all have applied, she mentioned that she's happy to sort of look into those applications. Once again, she's not directly handling that process, but it's something that we could look into. I would certainly say that in some cases, it does take time on our end to process those things, but as you're applying, make sure that you're not getting emails back from the team here asking for more information. So just make sure that you're checking all of your folders and your spam folders just in case there's information missing and we're trying to get in touch with you.
Awesome. And then there was also one more. Can we use the donate buttons with simulcast?
I can answer that, and the answer is yes. If you're eligible for a donate button or supporting a fundraiser or a nonprofit that is, you can add the donate button when going live through our tool called Live Producer, which allows you to connect Facebook to encoding software, which would allow you to be running a simulcast to Facebook. The functionality is also supported by some of our API partners, though the workflow there can be a little more complex.
Awesome. And then there was one more question about boosting posts. I don't know if we maybe save that one till later.
Yeah, we can probably save that one unless.
If it's specific to boosting a live broadcast, I'll just flag one thing that can trip people up is that only verified pages, so these are pages with the blue check mark, are able to put to basically advertise and boost a Facebook live broadcast. So just something to be aware of is there is that limitation.
Okay. It was basically trying to figure out what goes into why or how posts get placed on people's timeline, because there's an org that is boosting, but it's not getting much attention. So what or how, why constitutes a post getting placed on people's timelines?
Great question with a complex answer. I can share some of the best practices for live specifically, and some of these certainly apply more broadly. A general best practice for content is that content that fosters like healthy discussion and interaction between people is generally a best practice and will tend to do well. So that is one general recommendation, is to the extent you are able to foster good, healthy conversation between people, that is always valuable. When it comes to live broadcasts specifically, a couple best practices. One, we do recommend going for as good a broadcast quality as possible. An example of this, if you're going live from a mobile phone, would be to go live when you're connected to Wi-Fi versus just being on a mobile data network. Similarly, if you're using encoding software, maximizing the quality of the stream you can send, given your bandwidth, is great. Another key best practice is scheduling your live broadcast. When you schedule a live broadcast, which is only possible today when you're going live with Live Producer, so this is with a connected camera or desktop camera. When you schedule a live broadcast, it creates an announcement post at the moment that you're scheduling, which creates more visibility about the upcoming broadcast ahead of time, and also allows people to opt in to receive a reminder. So there's a get reminder button on that announcement post. People can click that and ensure that they'll receive a notification at the moment you go live. So that's a way, say you're going to go live a few days from now, you could schedule that today. That gives people an announcement post in their news feeds today. And those who click get reminder will get a notification, like a push notification, when you're going live at the scheduled time. So those are a few, just a few best practices for live broadcasts, at least.
There was a follow-up to something you mentioned just a minute ago about the blue check mark. What are the requirements for getting the blue check mark and getting verified? And does it help with your boost or engagement if you are verified?
Good question. That's something that we should follow up on. I'm not the the expert on the exact steps to follow there, but we can certainly find that information and follow up. It's specifically a requirement to be able to put to pay to boost a live broadcast. So it unlocks that capability to advertise your live broadcast. I don't think that there's otherwise advantages from a content standpoint necessarily there. So there may be some other features tied to it that I'm not aware of beyond live. But when it comes to live, I would think of that specifically in terms of whether or not you're looking to advertise your live broadcast with paid spend.
Awesome. And there was one more question about, one of the centers is having problems with their videos, and they were wondering, they've been trying to troubleshoot. However, they've been having some issues. They keep saying you can't share this link is the notification people keep getting when they are trying to share their live cast. So maybe is there an email or someone they can contact directly that could help them with that you could share potentially?
Well, we could follow as a follow-up to this discussion. Happy to take a look. I'm not sure what the problem necessarily is. I suspect it may be tied to privacy settings for the page or the content, but I'm not certain. So we would need to take a look.
Okay, awesome. And then, sorry, there was one more question. Do you know how to broadcast Zoom live to YouTube at the same time with Facebook?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, though I suspect it's probably possible. I know Zoom certainly has an integration that makes it possible to push a live stream to Facebook. I assume they have the same for YouTube and that you could probably do both at the same time. I'm not entirely sure. We do have a link to the Zoom Help Center for the steps to broadcast that we can share as a follow-up to this. So not 100% sure, but I do suspect it's possible.
No problem. And because the question was anonymous, you can message me and I'll be able to get you that link for you. Okay. Neda?
Oh, I was just going to ask Colin, could you talk a little bit more about rooms? I'm sure that I've heard that that's something that's integrated now with live, where you could have something similar to a Zoom call with multiple people. I've heard a couple of comments where Facebook Live is great, but you can only have basically one speaker at a time. So.
Yeah, so we recently announced a feature called Messenger Rooms that allows you to bring multiple people together through Facebook Messenger, but also with a link so people who are not Facebook users could join a room as well. And it works a lot for those of you familiar, as you probably are, given we're on a Zoom right now. It's not dissimilar from this experience, hopefully a little bit easier to use. And it's very much oriented to be broadly accessible and usable by everyone who uses Facebook. This feature is really, really new, but we are already working on an integration with Live. It is not launched yet, however. Unfortunately, I don't think it will be available in a time frame that's relevant for Ramadan this year, but we're working as quickly as we can. And what this will make it easy to do is to take a rooms experience that looks a lot like this one, where you've brought multiple people who are not together in one video, and to broadcast that to a page, to a group, or to a profile. So we're excited for when this launches, but unfortunately it's still a few weeks away at a minimum.
Awesome. Did you have anything else, Neda, that you wanted to mention?
I can pose a couple more questions related to live, or Colin can speak a little bit more about some live related. Maybe some.
I'm happy to do either way if you want to lead with the questions, given you have a good sense for what people might be most interested in, but I'm happy to just chat about some of the updates as well.
One quick question. So you mentioned live producer a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to get a better idea. Are most people going live from a phone, or are most people kind of having that paired with Facebook on their laptop and then streaming from there? So I know live producer is specific to when you're doing it from your computer, correct?
That's right. Yeah. I'd love if folks want to chime in who are participating here with how they're going live, I'm happy to tailor it to be more relevant. Generally, we see more broadcasts on mobile devices, but bigger broadcasts tend to be done through Live Producer. But the circumstances depend. I think there's also a mix even from specific pages where for, say, more of an event or something that was pre-planned, and they might use Live Producer, but then community members might go live through mobile devices for more informal gatherings and prayer meetings and things like that. So we see a mix. I'm definitely curious what this group is using.
I see we're using a third-party software called Be Live through
Great.
a laptop to host multiple people who are either on a laptop or on a phone.
Yeah. BeLive is an API partner of Facebook's that make it possible to do something similar to what we described about broadcasting a Zoom or in the future rooms. They allow you to do that in a really nice, kind of well-produced way. So that's a specific software partner that we do recommend for that capability.
Another said we use StreamYard for us, and it's worked well.
Great.
Another said I use the app on my phone because my phone has a better camera than my laptop.
Yeah, that is increasingly common.
There's also another one. We are using Streamlabs OBS to simulcast to YouTube and Facebook.
Makes sense. I'm familiar with Streamlabs, and yeah, great to hear. So a lot of folks using third parties that connect to the Facebook API. In some cases, like Streamlabs OBS, you may still also be using Live Producer. You do have that option of connecting an encoder like that to Live Producer in case there's a feature within Live Producer that is not built into the third party that you're using yet. There's sometimes a discrepancy between what our API partners offer and what's possible in terms of the latest functionality on Live Producer. So that is usually an option as well, that you would be able to connect, go into Live Producer and take advantage of some feature there.
So there's a question on that note. Does Facebook have a preferred third-party offering that they integrate better with?
We have a few partners who are listed on a web page that we can follow up with, who are API partners that we have a close relationship with. That doesn't mean they're necessarily recommended over others, but I would consider them like ones that we trust enough to put on our website as recommendations, so to speak. All API partners will be held to certain standards in terms of integrity and privacy and other things like that. I think it becomes a question of what specific capabilities you're after, and some of these partners will have very different offerings and be better suited to doing certain things. But we can follow up with that webpage, which has a list of partners that you think you should be comfortable looking to use.
Awesome. Thank you.
So as you go into talking about updates, Colin, I know there's a couple new features that have come out, one of which is link promotions, which I think would solve one of the issues before where you don't necessarily want a donate button on your live the whole time. But this is something that's only available through Live Producer. So maybe talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, would love to speak about this feature. So what this feature allows you to do is within Live Producer, it allows you to define a URL to an external website. So this could be the website for your organization, or it could be, for example, a link to another means of fundraising than Facebook's own native tools. So we would recommend using our native tools if you can, but we realize sometimes that's not an option. And what this feature allows you to do is it allows you to show a link to viewers of your live stream at specific moments during the live stream. So you're able to control, and this is the functionality in terms of timing and controlling that timing that we're going to bring to the donate button as well. So it is coming to the donate button. But this does allow you over the course of the stream to choose when to show the URL. And it's a convenient link for people to click. And we've made it possible now on Android devices, as it is on the web, to actually click through to that third party without being taken out of the stream at all. So you can visit that website and take any interactions you would like on that website, and the live video will continue playing in a small square on your screen, which is hopefully helpful to keep people engaged with the broadcast while also taking any actions that you recommend. And I'll mention another feature while we're talking about some updates. And by the way, we will share links to the Help Center documentation for these features after this so that you have them and you've got the instructions for how to use these. So don't worry if I'm speaking quickly about these and you're wondering how to access them. Another feature that may be useful for you in these times is the ability to designate members of your community as hosts on a broadcast. So this is a request that we heard from faith organizations specifically. You can do this for anyone who has an official role on your page. So you do need to invite them to be a moderator, an editor, or an administrator of your page. But for anyone who has a role on your page, you can make sure they are visibly designated as a host in the comment threads. And this can be useful if you yourself are, say, the speaker in a stream, but you would like someone to be moderating the comments on your behalf, to be welcoming people to a stream, to be doing anything like that in the comments. It helps people who are viewing the video know that that person has an official role and is doing so in an official capacity and represents your organization. So that's another feature that we think can be valuable for faith communities that we've recently launched.
There is a question about Live Producer. Do you know if Live Producer allows live streaming to be integrated with both Facebook and YouTube at the same time?
Good question. So Live Producer itself doesn't offer any capability for broadcasting outside of Facebook. But what Live Producer allows you to do is connect to an encoder or encoding software or hardware. Sometimes this is integrated directly into a camera. And that encoding software or hardware may well facilitate going live to multiple platforms at once. So the way you would go live to multiple platforms at once would be from that encoding software. Streamlabs OBS is a good example. You should be able within that software to say, I want to go live to these different properties that I control, connect those properties and manage that from that piece of software. And then you would be able to take advantage of any Facebook specific features in Live Producer for that same stream. So Live Producer doesn't directly enable that, but Live Producer empowers you to connect to software and hardware that does make that possible.
Thank you.
Are there any kind of live related updates that you kind of want to share, other best practices?
Uh, I'll share one other feature that I forgot to a minute ago, which is something we've just recently rolled out in the United States, which is the ability to set a dial-in number for live broadcast. We're only making this available to faith communities at the moment. So I do want to flag that depending on your page category, you might not see it. If you follow up with us afterwards, we're happy to grant you access to this feature. What this allows you to do is to create basically a dial-in number and access code, much like you would have for a Zoom call like this one, that you can then share with community members who may not have access to the internet so that they can listen to the audio of your live broadcast. So we think of this as just a valuable accessibility feature in a time like this. It's quite easy to set. I think the one thing that you do need to be aware of is that the access code will be different for every live broadcast. So you do need to communicate that ahead of time. And it's not advertised through the live broadcast, if that makes sense. So it's up to you to copy the number and access code and then share that through whatever channel makes sense for your community, email or I don't know, phone call to the constituents, particularly, for example, older constituents in your community for whom this might be valuable. But yeah, I think it's a great feature that can be really, really valuable for specific people.
And there's a question on that. Is that feature live now?
It is. As I mentioned, there's a possibility your page doesn't have it for whatever reason, but if anyone wants to follow up after this call through the channel that we establish, we're happy to make sure that your page has access to this.
There's one more question on that. We are a public charity made up of a faith community. However, we serve all people. Would we be eligible for this feature?
I think so. Let me take a look, and we can look to grant you access. I suspect yes. To be clear, long term, we would happily make this available to more pages. We're beginning with faith communities just because we saw a specific need there. So it's not a firm, I'd call it a very firm restriction against making it more broadly available. It's just not something we've done yet. So I think we'll be able to.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you so much, Colin. If there are any other specific questions, we can go through those. We also have a lot of resources, and we kind of mentioned the Help Center documents that we can also kind of go more into. And Avani has the Faith Hub that she can talk a little bit more about, so we can transition to that. But if there are any other questions, we can talk about those first.
Yeah, there was a question. It says, when you schedule a feature event from Streamlabs OBS, it adds the schedule to YouTube, but not Facebook. Is there any way to fix that?
Unfortunately, that would be a question for that third party. I'm not 100% sure. It'll be specific to their integration. It is possible to schedule broadcast through the API. And so I'm not sure why that isn't working on their side.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. There are no other questions. If anything comes up, just feel free to ask. But we can transition into the Faith Hub. So Avani, do you want me to screen share because I have some of these open and you can speak a little bit more about them, or do you have it open on your side?
Yeah, I have it open on my side. Let me just quickly clear my screen. So I wanted to talk about some resources that we have available for you to be able to get some best practices about how you can approach your organization's work on Facebook. Just give me a second. I have like so many tabs open, so
I'm the same way.
Yeah, like thousands of tabs. I'm just trying to get to the same place. And so in thinking through, I just first want to say before I share this, you know, all of these tools are available for your disposal, but underlying the momentum that you can build from all of these tools is really the way you convene and engage people on Facebook as a platform itself. So the first part of this is community building on Facebook. How do you get people into a space who in this day and time would normally be coming through our doors, right? And our organizations and our institutions, but because of COVID-19, we're not quite able to connect in that way. So some of the things I want to talk about and share with you are best practices that the Faith Hub has about how you can begin thinking about those types of interactions in a digital space that we are no longer able to have in the same way because of COVID-19. These strategies go hand in hand with using things like our donations tools, with using all the wonderful features for Facebook Live. And in combination, they're gonna help you build, you know, something beyond a captive audience. Audience is one part of it. I mean, people who are gonna walk this journey with you through Ramadan of 2020 who feel like they're a part of an experience that we're all having together. And so that's sort of what I want to pinpoint is that now we have an opportunity to build this through some of these practices. So let me just take you into our Faith Hub. And I'm just gonna quickly point out a couple of things that may be helpful to you in terms of thinking about the tools and resources available. So this is, I'll drop the URL into the chat once I'm done, but it's facebook.com/community/faith. And it's a bunch of tools and best practices and links about all of the things that we've been talking about today. So firstly, in terms specifically of for COVID-19, there's some resources on finding the best information from the CDC and WHO. And in terms of staying in touch, there's actually a very prescriptive list of things that you can think about doing on Facebook. One of the things that we focus on in the hub is moving from a page, which we liken to your front porch of your house, right? So if we're sitting on our front porch and we're broadcasting to people who are walking by our house, we're maybe only going to be able to reach about 10% of them. So on the Faith Hub, we talk about staying in touch and using a Facebook group, which is actually the closest thing that we can come to in terms of a digital community space that would feel like what we have in our masjids with our organizations within a brick and mortar space. So we also go into hosting study gatherings, worship gatherings online. There's lots of tips and all of those wonderful features that Colin was talking about. The phone dial-in option, the tab specifically for your live videos, the host badges that we were discussing and featuring a link. We've linked all of those things here in the hub. And then we talk about building community through Facebook groups, the donation tools that we were speaking about. So all these links are here in the Facebook, in the Faith Hub for you, and then some links back out to using fundraisers. I want to point out that we have a toolkit, which is the Faith on Facebook toolkit, that really goes through the top tips and practices for all of the different surfaces on Facebook that you would be using. So whether it's Facebook Live, the pages, Facebook groups, things like using watch video parties, so how you can actually have a lot of people watching content when it's not live on any one of these surfaces. And so there's tips and tricks related to that. So definitely wanted to share all of these things. So I'd urge you to go to the page and download the toolkit. I'm gonna drop this into the chat. But in terms of thinking about a set of best practices, one of the things I did want to mention is if your page is like your front porch, a Facebook group would be like inviting somebody into your living room for iftar, right? So you are in a dedicated space where you're able to break fast together, where you're having your dates together, where you're eating your biryani together, or whatever your favorite iftar foods are. And it's something that's more intimate. So as we begin to adjust to this new normal of living through these times, and people looking for spaces where they can continue to feel connected to us and our organizations, that's one thing I would ask you to think about is consider building a Facebook group so that people can gather in one space. And it helps in being able to get people's attention. So when you go live, for example, within a Facebook group, everyone gets a notification that you're going live. It's actually one of the best engagement strategies for a Facebook group. And if you're doing some of the other things, you have a dedicated space. So if you're launching a fundraising campaign, for example, and you have everyone in that one space, you're going to be able to keep them updated. And I know one of the questions was, how do we bring people into the fold if they're not necessarily already a part of our organizations? And so you can create this space to be a place where people can come to continue to stay in touch with you. So, you know, in thinking about moving from the front porch to the living room to the dining table during this time and really beginning to break bread with your community, these are some of the things that I urge you to think about in addition to all of the other things that we talked about. Put this in your strategy. Hopefully that's helpful. And happy to take any questions that you might have.
Yes. So for anyone who has questions, please, you can put them in the chat or in the question and answer. Either or works. In the question and answer, it's easier to keep track of it, because then if people, you know, keep going in the chats, I might miss one that was above. There's one question. What would the difference be between having a page from my organization and having a group?
Yeah.
Which is more beneficial?
Yeah, so like I said, your page is you broadcasting out to the world, but oftentimes it's not the best space to have deeper level conversations and really get to know people, right? We think of these, I liken a page to like a billboard, or literally sitting on your front porch and saying hi to your neighbors. A group is a more intimate space for connection. It's where you can begin to get to know people, to learn about them, to understand what their motivations are, and draw them into conversation, to draw them into events, to draw them into connecting to one another. So within the space of a group, people are often able to support one another. They're able to talk to one another. And that's slightly harder to do on a page. You can start conversations on a page and you can engage on a page, but it's just a deeper level of sort of community building because everyone's there in one container. And like I said, when you are, you know, when you like a page, you may or may not get all of the updates on the news feed. So if you understand about people's behavior on Facebook, they're typically just scrolling on their news feed, and whatever they happen to catch on the news feed is what they engage with. Whereas if we can start to create a behavior, just like we would maybe expect people to come for Friday prayers, right? Within our mosques, you may be able to seed some behaviors of getting people to regularly come into your group space and treat that as if they were there together with you in a live space. So it depends on what your goals are. But in terms of depth creation and intimacy, groups can be a better space for that just because they are designed to facilitate those types of connections.
Thank you. Yes, so really appreciate Colin for joining us and being with us. He has to drop off for another call, but if anyone has any specific questions on live or anything of that nature, you can still ask those, and if they're not able to answer, then we'll be able to get it to Colin and he'll be able to get back to us.
We can come out of this with questions too and figure out the best people to direct them to. So
Absolutely.
just a point of starting the conversation, and then hopefully everything that we talked about, there was probably a lot. So if anything kind of is unclear, anything you kind of, we can share more information about, just let us know.
There are two questions. One, what is the maximum capacity of a Facebook group?
So I don't think there is one actually. I've seen some Facebook groups that go up to thousands of people.
I work with a Facebook group, Munir, that has 3.5 million people in it. So
Yeah.
it's a large number.
Wow. Well, all right then.
So we've dropped a couple of the links to the things we talked about in the chat. I also have some of the documents open and can do a couple, kind of like a live demo, just pointing out some of these features on Facebook, if that's useful for people.
One other question. Said maybe this was answered before, but what are the requirements to have the blue check?
So I can answer about the blue check mark. The intention of the blue check mark is to prevent people from usurping other people's identities. So that's like the first intention of getting verified. If you do want to apply for a blue check mark or verification mark, you can do so in the help center at Facebook. So if you just search the help center, there's a form that you can fill out. Some of the things that they're looking for are things like your presence in the media, the propensity for you to be impersonated by somebody else on Facebook. I think it was Oways who asked this question earlier, whether it has any benefits in terms of engagement. And I work with community leaders on this side, and so have seen community leaders that are verified and community leaders that aren't. It does help to establish that you are the actual person that you say you are, but it doesn't give you any additional benefits in terms of getting people's attention. You still have to do the work to engage, to create good content, and to share on the platform.
There's another question. We have Facebook groups in our organizations for our chapters, but we struggle with getting people to discuss and start conversations. Do you have any tips?
Absolutely, and there's great tips for this in the Faith Hub. Some of the things that I think are the most important is that there's two principles to keep in mind. Is that people will model your behavior in a Facebook group. So whatever you seek to have people do in your group, you need to do yourself and model what you'd like to see. And then typically people will follow suit. It's creating a culture. And I want you guys to use a framework of thinking about what we would do in our physical spaces. So if you are taking your shoes off and doing wudu before you go into the masjid, typically, a little one would observe people doing that and then do that themselves. So in the same way, when you're ushering somebody into an online community space, you have to show them through displaying that over and over again, what the culture of the community is. The biggest thing to do when you're establishing a Facebook group or trying to keep it rolling is respond to people when they're commenting. Another thing that you can try is tagging people that have something to say about this, and then consistently giving people a way to, one of the things that I always say is don't put up any piece of content in a Facebook group without a call to action. So even if you're sharing like a religious text or you're sharing an event that's happening, you want to ask a question and give people an opportunity to engage. And then tagging some of your community leaders, tagging people that you know, then beginning to expand that into asking those people to encourage people to speak up are all a part of the process. But if you go through in your mind some of the things that you would do in real life to be a good host to anyone that comes into your organization new, and do those same things in your digital community. Some of these intuitive things that we oftentimes just do naturally, if you start to go through those processes, then you'll actually figure out what you might need to do in your online space, in your Facebook group, to drive that engagement. But in the initial stages, the biggest things are seeding content that has a question or a way for people to engage or reflect, tagging people to get them to converse, and engaging with every single person that leaves a comment. And I mean every single person. once people get that feeling that when they're contributing, that you're seeing them, it's a sense of validation. It's a sense that, oh, I'm contributing and they're noticing. Once they get that good feeling, they'll keep coming back and keep engaging with you. So hopefully those tips help. Let me know if you need any more specifics.
Maybe a couple more tips related to that too, since I've managed a couple of Facebook groups, is you can also pin certain posts at the top, also known as announcements. So those kind of get, those are stay there so that it's easy for people to kind of see them. You can have introductions, like Avani was saying, you want people to engage. So maybe asking anyone that joins it to maybe write a short introduction. And then you can also create events specific to a group. So by default, I think at that point, everyone from the group is invited to those, no? Okay.
Up to 250, but
okay, as long as your group isn't that big, then yeah, you can invite everyone, and then at that point, it's they're getting the notification for that specific event. So that's another way to make sure you're reaching the people that are part of it.
so for example, if you're hosting a fundraiser and you actually start an event in your group for the fundraiser, and you get everyone excited in the group about this fundraiser that's going to happen, or a live that's going to happen, where you're going to be talking about what's going to happen, you know, what the fundraiser entails. And these are some of the pathways to engagement that you can think about. And that's why a group can be really valuable.
Yeah. So there was one other question that I can answer. It was, is there a way to limit the country of origin for groups since they're getting invites from random people? What you can do is there are 3 different settings for a group. It can either be public, private, or secret. So secret groups, no one can even search for it. There is not a link to it unless you're personally invited to it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Avani. And then private groups are searchable. You can find them, but you can't join them unless you're approved. Public groups, anybody can see the posts, anyone can join it. With private groups, you can specify a set of questions that need to be answered before people can join. So for, you know, in this specific case, you can have a question saying, you know, which country are you from? And then filter there so that not anyone can join, only people that meet some set of criteria. So that helps you kind of filter instead of just having a group when anyone can kind of invite and join themselves.
Absolutely. I think using the membership questions, like Nada says, to help with that filtering is key. I see this as a really interesting phenomenon in which people are so eager to join your community. They could be from anywhere. There is a filtering feature for members in your incoming member, like if you're an admin or a moderator of a group, where you can filter, but the country specified filter is not there yet. But it's something that a lot of our leaders have requested. But you can also use the question feature. When we work with a lot of local, like geographically specific neighborhood groups, they oftentimes will ask, you know, what neighborhood do you live in? Which street do you live on? Because they really want to be very specific about the geography. So you can think about questions that you can ask. You know, what's the official mascot of such and such state, or something like that, something that only people from that place would know.
There was also another question. It says Instagram specific. I've tried getting my page verified on Instagram with no luck. They're verified on Facebook, but not Instagram. They've submitted paperwork a few times. Do you have any recommendations or tips on how to deal with that?
I would just say keep applying every 6 months. Instagram's thresholds are different for verification. I don't have specifics about that. I know a little bit more about the Facebook side. I do know that for any type of verification on Facebook or Instagram, you can reapply every 6 months and they'll reevaluate. I mean, they're looking at, I think I would ask myself, what are the benefits of verification that I'm looking for, and just be, you know, not to say that you shouldn't have it, but oftentimes when I work with my community leaders, they think that it makes them more legitimate, but once they get the verification, it may or may not be the case. So, you know, just gauge that within your own mind and know that it doesn't make your work any less significant or important.
Yeah, and I guess a follow-up to your last answer. They were saying that it's a headache to approve and not approve the members because they get about a dozen a day from random countries, which are obviously spam. So
hopefully they can have that filter that Avani is talking about built very soon, where you can filter by country too.
I 100% understand and hear this a lot. see it as a form of flattery that lots of people want to join your group and want to be a part of what you're building. But hopefully you can, you know, in some of the filters when you're looking at your membership request, you can toggle through the ones that are easy to filter for and then bulk decline everyone else.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are there any other questions or comments from anyone?
So Malik, I think you dropped your email. If anybody that did bring up specific concerns about their page, if you can also forward that along to him, and then we can try to direct them to the people that can help.
Yes, absolutely. So I put my email there, matic@shuracouncil.org. If you have any specific things and you would like to get in touch with them, please just let me know, and I'll be happy to connect and to forward them.
Yeah, and there's one thing I forgot to mention is that on the Faith Hub, if you do visit, hopefully sometime this week we're going to be posting a virtual Ramadan guide that's been you know, that's really thinking through what are the types of ways that we can bring people together digitally, and it's agnostic to Facebook, just thinking about digital spaces in general. So we hope to have that for you all soon, that you'll be able to take advantage of that to bring families and community together.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool. So we kind of went a little over time. I think we were slated for an hour. So thank you all for staying on. And yeah, forward any questions that you have to Malik, and then we'll try to get them to the best people. And then
really appreciate
as well, I believe.
Absolutely, and I really appreciate, you know, all of you being with us, taking the time out, answering all of our questions, and really being there as a resource for us. We truly do appreciate it. And if there's any way that we can be of assistance, let us know. And we look forward to continuing to connect with you in the near future.
Yeah, feedback is always welcome. So if anything does come up, feel free to reach out. I know we're trying to increase that kind of communication between the Muslim community and Facebook. So there's a lot of steps that are being taken there. So
absolutely. So please reach out to me. My email is right there. It's malek@shuracouncil.org. Reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to connect you with everyone. So with that, I thank all of our panelists. I thank all of our attendees. Really appreciate all of your time, your efforts, and everything. And I hope that this continues to be a blessed month, and that you are all safe with your families and your friends and all of our community.
thank you all so much again.
Thank you. Everyone have an amazing day and great iftar.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.